Hello, all. This is Beth Hayes. I'm the editor and publishing assistant for Sharon Quinn, author, and I'm here with Sharon and Will Gable, and they're going to discuss their radio show.
Yeah, today we'd like to just invite everybody to come to our Blog Talk radio show. It's on Sundays, 11 o'clock Central Standard Time. We've been doing it about 6 years. And recently here we've been discussing, well, I guess over the last year, we've been discussing Sharon's two books here, The Primer, The Big If in Life. And now we're getting into, I'm showing the book, The Preface to Your Eternity. And both of these are on Amazon and have been there. The response has been pretty good. So what we wanted to talk about a little bit today was some of the issues here with Sharon's approach here with her SELFGnosis process, which I've been around for quite a while, and how it somewhat relates to, we'll just kind of get off into this a little bit and come back to the Blog Talk thing, but how it relates to the New Age movement, which I will say personally, I guess I got in on the early stages of it in the early 70s and have kind of been flowing along, I guess, and trying to understand what it was really portraying. New Age, I guess you could call that an astrological, maybe the New Age of Aquarius. Another look at it is a lot of people think that the New Age information is actually new. Well, it's not new. It's new for America. Okay, all this stuff has actually come out of the East, even down to the biblical ends of it. It's all come from the East. So it's new to the consciousness of America because America came, the Pilgrims came over, if you want to call it, the people who established this country were all pretty much Christian, and they established those institutions here. But what we're talking about here now in the last 40 to 60 years, kind of, maybe longer than that, 1890s with Blavatsky and all those people. There was a whole movement through that in a New Age perspective. And so what Sharon has become awakened to here is a new paradigm. And this is actually one of the last week's show on Blog Talk Radio was, what is a paradigm? Okay, and so trying to break this cosmic egg of the New Age ideas is kind of a hard shell to crack. I mean, because it's become pretty encrustated here in this country and worldwide, I guess you might say, because everybody's kind of investigating new ways of what are we doing here in our existence? You know, what are we doing? You know, a lot of people don't ever even get past working 70 years, dying, and they have no idea why they're even here. So this is a big part of what the SELFGnosis process is about, is to look at what we're doing here on the planet. Okay, and if we're going to move on and look at some of our traditions differently, which we did another show on traditions, basically with the paradigm ideas last week, and that's kind of been interspersed with Blog Talk Radio into the situation for the last 6 years. I mean, it's been interspersed in there and looking at the tradition differently.
And what I kind of would like, a point I'd like to make to everybody who's listening here and watching us today, is that while Aquarius in some ways is representing this new age influx of information, it's really a moving through the cosmos of time. It's just time keeps moving. And they're epochs of major change. And they follow with great discoveries and just different ways of people living their lives and things like that. What has happened is the New Age movement has started to become a word that is now describing a lot of peripheral, very superficial type ways of getting involved with your spiritual life. They've jumped off the deep end into a lot of psychic activity and channeling and all different kinds of things like that, which SELFGnosis will never advocate, because they are actually getting us into the death side of life, which doesn't really transcend us into our presence. And self-gnosis is all about being able to transcend the ego mind and life itself. That's why the name of the book, the first book of the trilogy, is Preface to Your Eternity, because we are an eternity. We always have been and always will be, because we're aspects of the divine. And as aspects of the divine, we are co-creators. And basically, what started out with Aquarian energy coming in, pouring in its waters, opening everybody's mind to be ready for more, to come out of the traditions, because their basic business and life cycle has come to an end. Everything in life is cycles. They start, they play out, they serve a purpose, and then they kind of contract in, and then they can't go any further. And that's time for, change, when we, blossom into something new from the fertile soils of everything we learned. But right now, humanity has become really, really stuck on saving what's there. And then we have the pendulum swinging to the New Age movement, wanting to go off the deep end to the other side of the pendulum, going crazy on everything that's just not been explored before. While this is coming in under the flows of Aquarius, it is not really moving into that vein, as we've talked on our show.
You've given, I thought it was a very unique perspective on calling it paradigm paralysis. So
Yeah.
things have gotten locked down, and so everything needs to go through its transformation so that we can really get to the truth. So that the truth is we're an eternal being, and in some ways the traditions have not tried to hold us back. Now I think there are certain factions, but I'm not going to get into all that, but they have held humanity back from really discovering their spirit in the moment. I mean, even Christ said, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Well, what would that mean? That would mean it's now. It's not in 2,000 years. If it's 2,000 years, it's late.
Yes, and we are way late.
We're way late. So, I mean, I'm not trying to say it has to be in that time frame. I'm just saying that's a paradigm paralysis. If you say it has to be in a certain time frame and then things are not really appearing or change, I mean, there is some change going on for sure, but maybe some of that's just to break us out of our paralysis. And this is part of what Sharon's self-gnosis process is about, and a new explanation of looking at our existence here in this universe.
What's interesting is we're going to be loading up a lot of our shows that have been archived. We have over 300 and some shows, and we've been having some technical difficulties transferring them over to SharonQuinn.net, the author webpage, and the website, where we will be bringing in the shows that are pertinent to the breakdown and the discussions of the two books. We have went chapter by chapter already through the Big If in Life, and we are going through Preface to Your Eternity, and we are in the process of bringing those over to the site, and they'll be available for you to listen to, so that you can actually hear us talking about it, not just reading about it. We welcome you to come to the Edge of Truth, our radio show on Blog Talk, and call. We take calls. We are always very actively open.
We have a chat room. Chat room's open. 11
questions.
o'clock Central Standard Time, Sunday mornings.
Right. And you go to blogtalkradio.com/Edge of Truth. And there you can pick us up, as he said, on Sunday mornings. And I think you'll find the show very thought-provoking, and will always be something that gives you some deep thought. Not of the John Handy kind, but nonetheless, deep thought.